Get on up. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Cinematic Soul podcast. I'm your host, E. And if you couldn't tell, today's movie is one that brings a certain kind of emotion, a certain kind of feel when you watch it, when you sing the songs from the movie. I'm glad y'all are back with me today. And this was an interesting rewatch for a few reasons. This movie today, if you couldn't tell from that, is Get On Up. And I want to talk about that for a second because it came out in 2014. Chadwick Boseman did his big Hollywood movies before the Black Panther, before, all the Marvel stuff. He was in this. And I probably hadn't seen this before my most recent watch this week since, I want to say 2016, 2017. And that's important to say because, like I said before, so much has happened in life, in the world, to some of the stars of this movie since the last time I saw it. So watching it this time held a different weight. It all just felt different totally. And back then, I remember liking it, but I didn't love it. Like, obviously, there were some things that didn't really sit well with me. I thought Chadwick did his thing. Like, you could tell he studied James Brown. He embodied James Brown. But overall, just being honest, some things in the movie as far as the script and, what he was directed to do were kind of missing for me. And I kind of left it at that, right? Like I said, I didn't watch it every year, twice a month, kind of. No, because that would be me lying and faking and saying I did that. I didn't do that. I didn't really go back to it too often. I saw it maybe 3 times in my life prior to this week. And that's okay, but coming back now, this felt like a completely different movie. And not because the movie changed, obviously. It's still the same version that came out 12 years ago, which sounds crazy, by the way. It's the same version, but what's different is the person that I am now. What's different is the antennas that go up now when I watch this movie. And that's something that I want to talk about. One thing I want to discuss is how this movie moves, because that stood out to me. The first thing I noticed is how the camera shifts, the choices they made in certain scenes, the breaking the wall and, Chadwick/James looking straight toward the camera out of the scene and talking to us, like putting us into action. That doesn't move like a normal biopic, especially for 2014. You know what I'm saying? It jumped and it jumped and it jumped. 1 minute you're in the late 80s with James Brown going to his office building and somebody took a shit in his bathroom, and then you're in the 60s and then you're in childhood before his mom left his family, all this stuff. And then it'll jump again and you're backstage. And at first it felt like the movie was being kind of impatient, right? But sitting with it longer, I think it started to make sense. I started to look at it and think that this movie isn't really about telling his life in order. Like when James was born, this happened. When James was 10, he went there. When he was 14, he left school. And it's not supposed to be told like that. That's not the story they wanted to portray on the screen. What really happens is it's more like being inside of James Brown's head for a few hours or like a few days, right? The memories don't come cleanly and very detailed. Like they're kind of all over the place. They don't line up nicely. They came in flashes. Sometimes they pull you back and then sometimes they push you forward, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. And then you got James, as I said earlier, breaking the fourth wall, talking straight to us, like, stay with me now. Like all these choices, they grew on me in this most recent watch because I viewed it differently. It gives the movie a certain kind of personality. And it's not trying to feel like a history lesson, because some movies, whether they're biopics, whether they're TV movies, they feel like you're in world history class. And while this stuff is good to know, it doesn't make me feel anything. It doesn't give me any kind of joy, any smile on my face, any laughter. It's just dun 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 dun. This happened this way. Here is what happened in 1914. This movie doesn't do that. And I appreciate that more so on this most recent watch. Everything didn't land perfectly. Again, let me make sure I say clearly, some things in this movie I thought were very all over the place and they felt scattered. But at the same time, I would take that over something safe any day, because sometimes you gotta take some risks. High risk, high reward. Now, when we talk about the way this movie was shot, let me sit here for a second, because I don't think I gave the cinematography enough credit on my first watch. And here at the Cinematic Soul, that's the heart of this podcast. So I was watching it more this time with that in mind. And you guys, Stephen Goldblatt behind this one, and he's been behind a lot of things. If you've seen Batman Forever, the Rent 2005 movie, if you look at some of the things he worked on, the way they shot this makes so much more sense. Like, I went down his credit list and I was like, you know what? Now I get it. Now I see the way his mind works, and I'm a fan of it. What he's doing is subtle, but it's doing a lot of the storytelling. Like, for example, on stage, right? The camera feels like it's part of the performance, the angles, the shifts, the slow-mo shots. It's moving with him, and it's not just watching James. It's all of it. Everything is all together. You feel the rhythm and the way the shots are framed, the way the light hits, the way everything just kind of breathes when he's performing. And for somebody watching James Brown, that's how it's supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel alive. But then when you step off the stage, the movie changes how it looks at him. He becomes more human. He becomes more real. The camera pulls back more and things feel more still. And that's all on purpose. Sometimes it feels like it's just watching him and instead of moving with him. And that difference to me matters a lot, because when he's on that stage, as James Brown was, he was in control. And when he was off the stage, whether it was with his women or his family when he was a kid, his friends, the flames, when he's off stage, he's not in control like that. It's kind of a bad situation from time to time, And even the lighting plays into that part. Like, the stage lighting is warm, like it's almost this glowing effect, if you will. Everything matters more in that space. Like, there were real life elements, but they kind of felt flatter. They were harsher. They were less forgiving. I know I'm using words where y'all are like, what are you talking about? But I want to give you the task of going to watch the movie with this kind of view and with my eyes, if you will, and tell me if you can spot these things. Because if you're just watching it and you're scrolling on your phone, you're cooking food in the background, and you might miss what I'm saying. But if you watch it the way I watch it, you can actually see these things and learn to appreciate it. Because as artists in this world and as humans, we have to learn to appreciate the art and different concepts, different stylings. And this movie is one of those perfect examples of something being different, but it's unique. And then I started to notice how the film separates everything around him, like either through framing or space, or just how the shot is held a little bit longer than expected in some spots. It's almost like when he's surrounded by people, especially towards the middle and the end of the movie, he felt by himself, which was part of that storytelling, because he did end up being by himself. And that's why those performance scenes hit the way they do, because that's the only time the movie lets him feel fully connected to something, right? These moments in the rehearsal with the band, with the flames, with Little Richard, and then these performance sequences where you can feel the camera lock in with him. And the second that's gone, everything feels off again. But that's on purpose. And I don't think that's an accident. That's the way the film shows you without saying out loud that this is what James feels. This is how small he felt in that moment. And that's a powerful concept. And that leads straight to music. You can't talk about James Brown, a James Brown movie, nothing, right, without talking about the music and the weight of that. Because the music here isn't just in the background, like it's literally how James Brown communicates to people throughout the entire thing. It's how he controls the moment, how he controls the stage. Like whether it's the cold sweat, the Caledonia scene is probably one of my favorite ones when they did that performance. When Little Richard, if you've seen the movie, he goes outside to take a smoke break and just stand outside for a second. And they weren't supposed to go up, but they see the piano, they see everything just sitting there. So they say, let's go on, let's give him a show while he's on break. And James and the band, who they now call the Flames, they go on stage and they just rock out. And the way the music and the sound hits in that scene, it just felt so electric, man. Like I was like that part made me not only proud to be Black, but to know our history, our music, our culture, our rhythm, our blues. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's intense. That intensity is heavy, and he's breaking down the rhythm piece by piece by telling these grown men exactly how to play. At the rehearsals, telling these grown men exactly how to play. And yeah, some of it is funny because it has to be, right? From the outside, it sounds like he's arguing over small stuff, but then you hear the result of what he wanted. And that sound wave wasn't technical, but you know damn well how it should sound. You know what James Brown wants, and he wants that funk. So when he gets what he wants, you can hear the difference in the sound. And that's also where the genius shows up, because with all the problems he had, and boy did he have a hell of a lot of them, James Brown, whether it's the performance, the styling, the choices he made, he was a musical genius. And that's where you also start seeing how hard that probably was to deal with, from himself and from the people who were around him constantly. He couldn't have been easy, dog. That level of control doesn't stay in the music. It always, always, always spills over. How he treats people, how he runs the band, his relationship. Jill Scott, first of all, shout out to you. You know how I feel about you. You know my love for you runs deep. Man, Jill in this movie, like everything else, just sensational. But we're not here for that. The way he did her in some of those scenes when they first met each other, those choices, it was like, oh shit, this James is, he's not right, but he's entertaining. And sometimes that's all it takes. And what I appreciate is I know his history. I've done my research like years worth. And I know, like I said earlier, James Brown, as much of a talent as he was very problematic. And like I showed in the movie, he did, argue with the band, smoke in their faces, take their money, beat his wives. What I love is how the movie doesn't try to hide that. They don't try to paint it up like, for example, I'm gonna go there, Dr. Dre, Straight Outta Compton. That was a great movie, but they tried to hide a lot of the bad shit and make it like they were just this one big happy family who had a small spat, but in the end, we're all great people and we're all gonna... You gotta be honest. You can't tell every single detail, but if you're gonna do a biopic about this person and they have a troubled past, That troubled past has to be mentioned, or else this isn't realistic at all. Like, James Brown is charismatic, he's funny at times, but he's also difficult. He's also selfish. He's also sometimes just a plain asshole. And the movie just lets all that exist without forcing you to pick a side. And I truly appreciated that aspect of it. Chadwick Boseman becoming James Brown, he literally did that. Like, for this performance, you can just tell how much work went into it. You know, he said he would practice his dance steps 5 to 8 hours a day. Now, he could dance, he had rhythm, he could move, but he couldn't move like James Brown. And honestly, who the hell can? Like, how many of us can just get up and say, I can do all those steps in the mashed potato? And nah. You know, so as a person who studies the craft and wants to be as perfect as he can be, and mastering those steps and performance and facial expressions, Chadwick had to embody and become James Brown. And it wasn't just a voice, which he did get, by the way. He got pretty damn close to James Brown voice. It wasn't just the mannerisms, it was physical. Like the movement, the footwork, the way his energy shifts. Mr. Bet! All these little things, even when standing still, don't feel still. And knowing that he did his own dancing, watching it this time made me appreciate that more, because while he didn't sing, all the dance performances, you could see this is this person, this is this man doing the splits, which kudos for that part. Because I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, when I was a kid, I did the splits. I would dance for hours. But nowadays, like the last time I tried to do a split, I want to say it was about 14 years ago. And when I tell you, that did not go well. That did not go well. So for him to learn that and do it the way James did it and craft that just perfectly is so important. And it's so applause-worthy because he was an actor, not a professional dancer. He was an actor who wasn't James Brown. So to embody James Brown's spirit like that, you got to give him credit. You got to give him kudos for that. None of that to me looks easy. And he said himself it wasn't easy. Like, you have to study. You have to want this role. You have to want to embody it. You have to want to understand it. You have to become Mr. Brown. And I think he did that masterfully. But I mean, are we surprised? Because Chadwick Boseman was indeed him. Damn it, man. And then we get Nelson Ellis. His performance is somewhat quieter, but just as important in the story of James Brown in this film. It's just important, man. And he played a very layered character, if you will. He played Bobby Bird. And Mr. Bird, he is the emotional anchor, in a way, of the entire movie. Like, he's there before everything takes off. He goes to the jail performing with the group, and then he spots James and hears James and is like, hold on, he might got a little something there, you know? So he ends up getting his parents to get James out of jail and essentially changing his life forever. Like, James goes and stays with them, gets with his sister, which, you know, I would have probably had to throw hands about that, James, just being honest. But I get it. You know, she's there and she see you. Things happen with these crazy kids, right? But that's a part of their story and their relationship and their bond. And from there, everything takes off. He's there for that. But he's also still there when things slowly start to trickle apart and fall apart. You can feel the loyalty from that character, but you can also feel, even from the beginning with the flames, like them being, you know, James Brown, and you can feel the frustration building over time. And that's something that's important to talk about, because in the end, they do have a disconnect finally after all these decades, but they do end up showing them together again for the last 20 minutes. So they go through this rising to the top of the top, right? To slowly but surely, like most friends and groups do, fall out. They don't speak for a while. And then they link up because magic, because that's what we do. Their relationship is what, to me, keeps this movie grounded. Even when everything else is jumping around, that didn't feel fake, right? That didn't feel like somebody just performing and acting like friends on TV. It felt authentic because James had times where he seemed like a good friend, and there were times where he seemed like just a shitty ass dude. A dude trying to keep you down from rising up with him. You know, he's cool with you until you're on his level. They showed all of that. But in the end, as I said, they showed a reconnection. And that's love. And now, I want to slow down right here for a second, because this part, to me, I'm going to be honest. The last scene in this movie was hard for me to get through for several reasons, and I'm going to explain why. If you know, you know, right? If you know who was in it, if you know what happened in the movie, the try me scene when, you know, James and Bobby reconnect. He goes to his house in the early 90s, gives him tickets to his concert. This is James's like first big thing after getting released from jail, which James Brown did go to jail. He has his concert, and he tells Bobby, you know, hey, if you and Vicky want to come, I got 2 tickets for you, and they good seats too. And Bobby, you know, still being mad at James from what happened all those years ago, is pretty much in his own way saying, nah, I don't give a damn what you got. I'm not going. Me and her got plans, her family coming to town, which that might have been true. But at the same time, he wanted to let James know what you did was foul, dog. And I'm still not cool with that. But he does end up going to the concert. Like, they come, James spots them because there are good seats, you know, so James spots them in the seats. And you got James on stage, and you got Bobby in the audience, and it's quiet. It's not a big dramatic ending. It's not some dance numbers and lions jumping on stage and fire breathing dragon. It's none of that. It's just these 2 people who share this emotion, who have this history together in the same space. Again, after everything they went through, after all the heartbreak, after all the how could yous, they're back together again. And what stood out to me this time is being said without being said. I'm going to say it right here, but it just hit different. James Brown is on that stage doing what he does, but it feels heavier because there's history sitting in that performance, but also it has a deeper meaning in 2026. I literally had to pause it. I had to pause this one frame, and I'm going to post a clip later on when I drop this episode. I had to pause on that frame because this is the first time I saw this movie as, in its own way, a cinematic masterpiece and emotional for different reasons. That might have seemed like just a scene, but with what's happened since then, it's not. You're watching more than just James Brown and Bobby Bird. You're watching Chadwick Boseman and Nelson Ellis. And both of these black men, both of these kings, unfortunately passed away way too early. Nelson passed away in 2017 from complications of alcohol poison and drinking, which I didn't even know at that time he was drinking like that, to the point where it made him sick. And then Chadwick Boseman as we know, in 2020, died from stage 4 colon cancer. And watching that now shifts the whole moment. That whole scene that was already supposed to be somewhat dramatic in a way made it more quiet and more kind of heartbreaking. Because when they filmed that, when this movie came out in 2014, I'm sure they had no idea that just 6 years later, both of these men in this final scene, in this last frame, playing these best friends, both of these black men are going to be dead. Like, gone way too soon is the least you can say. Like, you get these two performances from two people who gave their all to the craft, who studied the craft, who put their heart and soul into everything. Man, like that connection between them feels more fragile now because of what happened, because of life doing what life does. And it's like you're watching something that can't happen again. I'm not trying to overplay it, but if you followed their careers, you know just how good they were. And how their lives being taken so soon is a tragic loss and such a fucking blow to us. Like, to everybody, to their friends and family, to the industry. They had so much more to give, man. So much more to give. Like, Chadwick's climb was on a universal type level, right? Like, I'm talking big box office. And to get diagnosed with cancer, the minute you find out you're gonna be getting your own feature film with this Marvel character that's huge, it's gonna be a huge moment, the Black Panther. You find out that same year that you land that film in 2016 that you have colon cancer. And of course, some people have beat it. You think you have a chance, you're gonna keep fighting. But ultimately, somebody else has some other plans for him. And that just holds a certain weight. You could see his performances after that, you know, he gave his all because I feel like part of him knew this might be it for me. You know, so in the Black Panther and, you know, Ma Rainey and the Five Bloods, you see this man, while yes, his appearance is changing, he's still giving you 145%. Everything he literally has left. Watching that last scene this time, because of how much I love both of their work, how much I love Lafayette, you know, watching that just hit me so hard. And I shed a tear. Like, I'm shedding one right now talking about it, because it hurt to know that they put out this work and they gave these great performances. And just like that, all we have left is the performance. While I appreciate it and that gift that they gave to us, that's still a tough blow. That's still tough to think about. And it holds you in that moment even after they're gone. That scene, if you rewatch it now, will stay with you longer than expected. And you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. Cinematic Flowers this week, obviously, is going to Chadwick Boseman. I mean, for just fully committing to that role and giving it everything that was needed. As I said earlier, 5 to 8 hours per day of dancing till you get it right, having to wrap his knees and his ankles with ice and tape every single day just to play a role. Most actors would have said, fuck it, man. Y'all are gonna get what you get. I'm giving you this right here. That's good enough. Give me a stunt double. Chadwick said, nah, the hell with that. I'm gonna get this now. I'm gonna master this. While this role might seem small to some, for me, I'm giving it all I got. So he learned and went beyond what was expected of him. And for that, the Cinematic Flowers, Chadwick Boseman, thank you for blessing us with this performance and all the others that came before this and after this. As a cinephile myself, let me just say we appreciate it. And we appreciate you. This movie is far from perfect. I give it maybe a 7 out of 10, mainly because of Chadwick Boseman. If he didn't perform James so well, and I just had to go off of the script and, things like that and those choices, it might be like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Just being real. Like Chadwick literally carried it, but this movie is very interesting. And sometimes that matters more. And as I said, this movie will matter, I think now until the end of time because of the unfortunate passing of Chadwick and Nelson. And this was a James Brown biopic. So naturally, for music lovers, for history buffs, they're going to find their way to this film. And when they do that, they will see the awesome performances that were given by these men who I call legends in the game. So it still matters. That's all I got for today, y'all. I appreciate you taking this ride with me, listening. You can follow the podcast on Threads, on Instagram at Cinematic Soul Pod. We're also on Facebook and on YouTube. Let's get those YouTube numbers up, y'all. Run it up. Cinematic Soul Pod on YouTube. Thank y'all for listening. And as always, stay black, stay magical, and keep the soul and cinema alive. Peace and love, y'all. We out.